I know you have a lot of questions, and we'll get them answered. I'm not going to go, through a depth chart, talk about that. I'm not even going to talk about individuals extensively. I will talk, if you ask a specific question about someone, but I don't want to elaborate too much because we're still in the process at this moment. But it's been kind of fun with these guys in that they've got really good energy, we've got really good focus, we've got really good leadership. They understand the standard that we've set here. And so we're making progress. We've got a long way to go. This is entirely a new football team than last year's, although we have guys back. So with that, I could go over the depth chart, but I saw where y'all had already printed one. It's wrong, but you printed it anyway.
Kevin, what have you seen out of Noah? Obviously, a guy that didn't have a ton of experience in the secondary. What have you seen out of him over there so far?
Noah is obviously very fast, and historically, there's been a lot of corners in this league come in, be wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, and move over. That's historically in this league. And so he moved over. The thing that gives him an advantage is he's got the skill set. That's pretty obvious. But he has the toughness. And that was something that sometimes you're unsure about when you move a guy over. And I don't mean to say offense is different defense, but tackling is different. And he's been really good at that.
Elsewhere in the secondary, Kevin, you had questions to answer at nickel and dime. Where are you in figuring out who's going to fill those roles?
Yeah, we kind of play around with it for a lot of reasons. Not because we don't have the answer that if we had to play tomorrow, we would probably say, okay, this is the way it's going to be. We could do that. But the thing about it is with injuries, and we've got the ability to have some moving parts. Obviously, Dean doesn't go in there. Broussard doesn't go inside. But Denson can go to it. Jordan Peters can go to the star. And then Javaris Davis can go to the star. And then what really helped us is the three young freshmen in Tut, Sherwood, and Monday coming in and picking things up very quickly. It allows us to really move the checkerboard around, if you will, almost, I won't say daily, but each week we've kind of configured it a little different ways, almost like we had an injury and moved guys certain places. So we've got some depth created there.
So who would be the dime? Who would be the sixth DB in that spot at this point?
The nickel, the star?
No, well, nickel if you got two or three options, but if you had to go dime,
yeah, then
JD, Dean, Jordan.
Right. Right now we have not done a lot of dime. We're only in the second day of dime. We've had the first day, Denson had the flu on Tuesday, so he was the dime. So Daniel went there, and then Daniel went back to safety, and today Denson went there.
Coach, you mentioned Jordan Peters. What have you seen from him from last year kind of till now in terms of development-wise?
Well, obviously he's been in the weight room, so he's a little bit bigger and stronger. He understands things. He picked it up very well last year. Now, one thing that, we've only had him back 2 days because early in the process he hurt his knee, so he's low rep right now in terms of just the number of snaps he's had than others. So we'll just we'll finish spring and try to assess it a little better then in terms of exactly where he may be.
Kevin, in terms of spring as a whole, is there, I mean, obviously you're not preparing for a game, is there what you're trying to accomplish in the spring?
Well, yeah, what we're trying to, our pillars for success is that, we want to be relentless in pursuit. So effort is being coached at a high level, every day on every play. Effort is the eraser. If somebody makes a mistake, effort will erase a mistake. Then we work really hard on physical fundamentals, being physical with your fundamentals. So really, really good in fundamentals. And then, of course, tackle. We've done a lot within the framework of how much you can tackle. And so, the proper tackling technique. But with that, probably beyond that, in terms of those are things we're going to do every day. Probably the biggest thing we've tried to do is create competition at each and every position. At all 11 spots, there's more than one guy. And so what that does is it holds everybody accountable and responsible because there is somebody else. So we try to create competition.
Kevin, what do you like out of Daniel Thomas? And I know this is a new team, but can you rely on him the same way you relied on Trey and Steven you did last year and the year before?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, Daniel is, you know, a smart guy. He's a good tackler. He runs very, very well. You know, he's got good athleticism. So, you know, he just didn't have the experience that Trey has, but he's a smart guy.
Yeah, other than Daniel, you haven't really had to rely on a lot of freshmen in the secondary here. When you have Sherwood and Monday and Tuck, who you're probably going to have to play out of necessity, just how do they compare at this point in their development after only 8, 9 practices in the spring?
Right.
Where do they stand compared to other?
Well, the thing that we could line up without them, if we had to start 11 guys, we could do that, and you know, that would be with Denson and Daniel back there and Jordan at star, and then the JD and Dean at corner. But we could do that. But we also could, you know, drop JD down and put Sherwood or Mundy in there. I think you got to be careful of is 2 freshman safety on the field at the same time at this point in time. At this point in time.
Coach, can you talk about Big Cat and TD, going into their second seasons, how they're coming along?
Well, we don't look at it like second season. I mean, we look at it, here's the job, do the job. You're here. I mean, you know, we are into developing players. Obviously, you know, it kind of goes back to the theory we talked about before. If you wait for Carl Lawson to replace him when he graduated, you're a little bit far behind. You know, somebody else will probably coach him. So, and then Jeff filled in. He decides to come out early. TD has a tremendous skill set and he can affect others on his side of the ball and the other side of the ball. And then Big Cat, probably the last 2 days has really made his ascension has been rapid in the last 2 days. It just, the light switch came on.
Was adding some bulk to Big Cat and getting a little bit stronger, was that a goal in the off season? How's that come along?
Well, that's a goal with all those guys
right.
when they come in, but obviously at the line of scrimmage in the SEC, bulk and strength is key. So, you know, he's gotten, I mean, I don't know if you've seen him around, he's bigger and stronger.
When you say the light switch came on, what's the difference?
Just repetition. Just repetition. It really is. I mean, Big Cat, people don't realize this, but Big Cat played 2 positions as a freshman. He played 6 technique, the end position, and he played the buck position. Where right now in spring, he's really getting the focus on just the buck position, which helps.
A lot of people will, on paper, when you have 3 defensive linemen returning as good as you guys have, will just expect more naturally. No, that's not necessarily that realistic, but they'll just expect more when you have players that talented all back at one time. What do you expect and demand when you have 3 guys as talented as you do?
Just like you said, more. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, this is Auburn University. We're in the SEC. You're big, you're strong, you're fast, you've developed, you're getting toward the end of your career here. You know, you should be better. And you know, now it's a team game. So you've got, you know, they can only play 1 game. You know, we have good depth in the defensive line. There's good competition there, you know. So hopefully they feel like they should be better. That's just the way we're built. We're trying to improve every day. You know, I told somebody the other day, this is not a try league. This is a do league.
Well, what does more look like, though? Is that, I mean, beyond just production, are we talking about more pass rush? Are we talking about, especially because the last couple of games, rush wise?
Well, because it is a developmental. I mean, we're still, in college, we still develop guys. I mean, we have to develop guys. We have to improve on the little things, the little nuances in technique, in the run game, playing double teams, pass rush, those things, you know, polishing things, continuously improving with them is probably the biggest thing.
Kevin, just defense, what's it mean to have Deshaun, Darrell, Montavious, those guys back in the middle of that defense?
Well, it's kind of odd. This is my 3rd season here, and we've graduated 1 linebacker technically, which that in itself is really odd. So these guys have been doing it a long time, and the thing that now we have the luxury with Chandler and KJ, they've added to that. And so smart guys understand the defense. People don't realize there's a lot to be said for conceptually understanding what you're doing. And it's not constantly changing. And it's hard. I mean, you do realize that you're looking at I'm tied for the first longest tenure as a defensive coordinator at the same school in this league. And I've been here 2 years. Second lieutenants in Vietnam had longer life expectancy. I mean, so there's a lot of change in college football nowadays. And so anytime you can keep continuity as much as you can, the same system, it sure helps them be better players.
How much then the players, having those guys as another voice to coach those young guys too, how much does that help the development?
Well, that's called leadership. You know, when you got leadership leading guys and helping coaches, then it comes from within. And the greatest leadership tool there is peer pressure. And so when those guys are on them about the standard, the accountability, responsibility, the effort, the tackling, knowing your job, doing your job, it's major growth when that happens.
Kevin, how many different positions could Nick Coe legitimately line up? Is it all four? You could feel good about him lining up in?
Well, and I wouldn't go that far. I'd say three.
Three.
I mean, I don't know that. I guess in an emergency, you could put him at nose.
Right.
I don't know that he'd like it, but you could put him there.
How rare is that? How rare of a talent is he from a versatility standpoint?
Well, he's a different kind of guy in that regard because he's long, he's strong, but then you see the fact that, he was an accomplished wrestler. He understands leverage. He understands use of hands. He understands body leverage. He understands that. I mean, that's wrestling. And when you apply that to defensive line, then it allows him sometimes to play bigger than he is.
Kevin, can you talk about what you saw in the first scrimmage, or what you'd like to see in the scrimmage too this week?
Right. Well, I think we tackled well. We had very good effort. The turnovers were, we had 5 turnovers, so that was very good. I think the fact that we put different combinations of guys out there and the play did not drop. We didn't get things exposed because we had different guys out there, different combinations. That was a positive. But probably the biggest thing is they self-corrected because they understand the system. Whereas, the first year, wow. I mean, you're yelling out there trying to get them lined up. The second year, the younger guys and occasionally a weird formation, but they apply the principles and the concepts, and it makes it a whole lot easier.
How's Javaris look? Is he a guy that maybe got overlooked some last year because of Carlson?
Who's that?
Javaris Davis.
I don't know who overlooked him. I know we didn't in our room. The guy's, he can run real fast. He's a good technician. He's a tough guy. He's really smart. So, and had multiple uses. I mean, he played nickel or star and played corner. So, I don't know that I really don't understand the overlook concept because it takes 2 corners, and if I'm playing one and Carl's playing the other, then there's a major issue. If you got a really good player on one side and a really good player on the other, one may get more attention, but hey, who knows? That may be because they don't want to throw at it.
Has his mindset changed at all with Carlton gone?
No.
What do you see in the spring out of Atkinson, and what are you hoping to see as he progresses forward this year?
Well, he's kind of a guy that he's so physically tough, and he plays with such a high motor. He runs so well that we can use him in some different ways. Good pass rusher, he's a good blitzer, good open field tackler, but he can also cover. I mean, you can steal some snaps with him. I won't say on the top wide receivers, but if they're in 4 wide receivers, there's some teams he can cover the 4th wide receiver. So it gives us a little bit of multiplicity in the use of things without having to substitute.
What has Marcus brought to this staff, Jeff?
He's a good teacher. He's got a lot of energy, good communicator. And so probably the biggest thing, though, is it helps in the fact that when you're teaching, you know, the buck is sometimes different than what the D-line's working with. So I gotta go take the buck. Well, then sometimes the Sam's different than what the linebackers are doing. So I gotta go take the Sam. And then in the secondary, sometimes I had the star, sometimes I had the corner, sometimes I had the safety, so it was just kind of moving around. That just takes one thing out of that for sure. So it does help the attention that the detail gets taken care of on the field.
Because we don't know if we'll get you before A-Day or even after for that matter. What will make you feel like when spring's done and over with, what will you feel like, you've completed and accomplished what you wanted this spring?
I don't know that I could answer it that we feel like we've accomplished what we wanted, because if we accomplish something, then we're going to want more. That's, you know, that's the part of coaches that's just like the fans. And so I think that the players that we know what they can do, that we polished those guys and we improved in things that they could do better. Not because they were doing it bad, but they could do it better. And then the guys that level of guys that just really struggle grasping what we're doing because of the youth and inexperience that they've gained that. But in all that, we've got competition to be on the field at every position, because we're not result oriented. You know, game plan means you got a game and you plan. We don't game plan in the spring. We go out there and we're trying to get multiple calls on tape against the same look, so that we can teach. Okay, if we're in this coverage versus this set, do this. So there's not game planning. It's not result oriented. It's process oriented, that they understand the process of and the components, as well as the skill set for their position, and mastering that. So it's a lot of individual, because we create some stress now on purpose, because we're not game planning. There's no scoreboard. I mean, we make some calls sometimes to put stress on them. You wouldn't call that in a game if you knew what they were in, but I know what they're in because it's spring, so put stress on them. Make them play themselves out of some hard situations. And so just the confidence of being able to master the playbook.
Thanks, Coach.